Hello and g'day! In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a soft fabric fold over junk journal cover. You can make it from upholstery fabric or any fabric you have on hand. And we'll be making this cover from scratch. It's really beautiful for when you just want to make something simple. I'm showing you how to make this fold over style junk journal because not everyone wants to make a hardcover junk journal. Or maybe you've just been holding back and haven't even started to make a junk journal. All you have to do is watch and follow my lead. You can pause this video whenever you need to. I won't be fast forwarding or skipping any important bits. I'll have the instructions and the measurements of the size of this fold over journal cover I'm making today on my website. And this is for you if you need to see the sizes written down, and they'll be both in metric and imperial. What we're going to cover today is we're going to talk about the journal, about the fabrics, about the pages, about cutting out the fabric, fusing the fabric together, stitching around the edge, and trimming the edge if it's needed, and that'll be finished. There are so many ways to make a junk journal cover. This one is all one piece. And when it's folded over, all you have to do is sew in the pages. The soft fabric fold over journal has a beautiful finish, which is going to make it really soft in your hand. It's not meant to be stiff as a board. This would be perfect for an elderly person. It would be perfect if you just prefer to have something that was nice and soft. If you're not into the really hard covers, well, this one will be ideal for you. The fabric you need to make this fold over junk journal cover is two pieces. You need your cover piece, which can be an upholstery fabric. It can be a cotton, like this is a tea towel, and I just coloured it with some paint. This is more a furniture fabric for covering a chair or a lounge. This is a lighter upholstery fabric. And it's pretty perfect actually, because it's not too heavy, but it's got some decent weight to it. And then you've got 100% cotton. These are called rolled fat flats, and they're just, you get them in a smaller piece. You don't get a real lot of fabric in them. They're a little bit bigger than this. I've used some of this, but these are good. I like using these for the lining. And this is also 100% cotton. It comes in white, and I just colour it. This one's been tea dyed with a little splash of coffee on it to give it some aged colour. So there's a few different styles of fabrics that you can use. Don't overwhelm yourself. Just, you need two styles. One for your cover and one for your lining. Nothing any heavier than what I'm showing you here today. Now you also need some heat and bond. This is a fusible web. It comes on a roll, and it's got paper on one side, and it's got a very fine web on the other side. It's double-sided, so it fuses both sides. I'll show you exactly how I use it. We're going to put that down, iron that onto the fabric. The paper protects the webbing on one side. The other side will glue to the fabric. And then you'll see as I go through the process how I use the double-sided fusing of it. Don't let it confuse you right now. You'll see it in action and you'll understand it if you haven't used this before. So that's a heat and bond. We get this in Australia. It can be called FLEECE, BONDAWEB, or Heat and Bond. Both are double-sided fusible web. When you heat it, it melts. That's all you need to know. And it will fuse two pieces of fabric together. And once it's on the fabric, it keeps it feeling really soft. Also, the reason I'm using this is so that we don't need to use wet glue. Right, now the star of the show, this fleece. I'm using this fleece to go between the lining and the outside cover. That gives it this beautiful, spongy, soft feeling. Like I said, it's going to be sandwiched between the cover and the lining, and it creates our soft cover. And adding this is optional. Say you had this heavier upholstery fabric and you just wanted to line it with this here. You can just do that. I wouldn't want a cover this light. There's nothing stopping you from having a cover this light if that's what you prefer. But our lesson today is we're using this fleece, and it's called Vilene Fleece Fusible in medium. And I got this from my local quilting supply store here in Australia. I guess you could get it from Spotlight, but you'd have to check. It's fusible on one side only, and it's nice and soft on the other side. You can see how thick it is, but so soft that it doesn't get in your road when you're using it. The lining fabric is 100% cotton. The reason that I'm using fusibles today is because a lot of people have trouble with glue. It will seep through. I've done a little sample video to show you on the glue seeping through and how easy it is to mess up your project if the glue seeps through. So no glue today. We're not using any glue. We're using all fusible. I'm going to supply the details of size for both a letter size and an A4 size. And right now I'm going to show you the difference between the two. This cover here has been made to fit the letter size. See how we've got just a little bit left over at the top and the bottom. So if you get a letter size sheet and then fold it in half, that would form your pages. So that's your fold line in the center of your cover. When you put it in there, the pages are not poking out the top and they're not poking out the bottom. They fit in there nicely. This is so that you can put it in here. Right now, it just fits with a little bit left over at the top and the bottom. If you put all your pages together and they were a little bit uneven, you've still got a little bit of room there. You can trim a bit off the top and off the bottom of your pages, and you'd still be able to put it in here no problem at all. There's still enough room here from the edge of the paper. The whole objective is when you make your signatures is they are made to be trimmed back. So you could trim this back this far here once you put your signatures in there, so they don't creep out past your cover. So you don't want them to come past your cover. You just trim them back. When you get your download, the guide, and you're doing letter size papers, this cover is made exactly for letter size. The A4, exactly the same. You get your cover and your A4 fits in there. Once you fold it over your pages, fold it completely in half, Once it's there like that, see how they're now, if I bring my covers together, the page is too big, but that is how bookbinding is made. We have them a little bit bigger and then we just come along later on and we just trim that back once you're finished putting all of your pages together like this. So you've put them all inside each other, then you turn around and you trim them back. Now I'll show you this one here with a lot more signatures in it. If you wanted to have more than one signature, see this one here's got one signature in it, this one's got lots. Once you get to know a little bit more about bookbinding, this will come naturally to you. So my height is going to be the same as whatever your paper height is, but you need your cover to be longer this way if you're going to put a lot of signatures in there. So if I put all of these signatures in here, see what happens? They don't fit because I've got too many in there. It's shortened my cover. I have not got enough cover to go around all of these signatures. If I take them out and I put them in this one, they fit because I've made my cover a lot longer. Okay, do you get that? It's a lot longer because I'm putting more signatures in. So if you want to put more than 1 or 2 signatures in the cover that we're making today, add 1.5 inches to it in the length. Download the guide so you know what size I'm going to cut out. I'm going to cut out today the A4 size. What I've done just to speed things up is I've made myself a cardboard template. So I don't have to go measuring. I'm just going to lay my template on here and I'm going to trace around it. You can use chalk if you've got dressmaker's chalk. If you use a pencil, you've got to make sure that you cut the pencil away because you don't want the pencil to be left on the edge of your journal, because this is going to be, the cut line is going to be the edge of your journal. This is going to be our finished area. So don't leave a pencil line on there. I'm just going to use a tracing wheel and I'm going to press on it because this is my cutting mat. And I'm going to use that for my guide. Now, not all fabrics will leave a mark like this. It's just because I've painted this cotton cloth and it's got a really nice texture. You may or may not see this very faint line around there, but it's good enough for me to be able to see. I'll go ahead and cut that out. I'm going to follow the guide to the T just so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. To save yourself tracing, just put your wrong sides together. There, like that. And then just cut them out. Use your actual fabric for a template and that way you know it'll be identical, but make sure your wrong sides are to the wrong sides and it'll follow the lines perfectly. If you're not confident doing that, just use the template. Save yourself a little bit of time. This is the fleece piece that's going to go in between these two layers. So what I've done is I've pre-cut this to save you some time watching me, and I've cut it 5 millimeters shorter, if you like, each side. I just cut a whole centimetre off one side and a whole centimetre off the other side. what that actually does is make it 1/2 centimetre shorter either end. It saves you cutting it off all the way around. So all you need to do is cut 1 centimetre off one whole end and 1 centimetre off one whole end. Right. All that's left to do is cut the double-sided BONDAWEB. Now it's got paper on one side. So what I've done to save time is I've done just that. I've already measured it. I'm going to put that down. It always curls up, this stuff. It is a bit of a pain to use, but it's a great product. The curling of it is the only downside. Everything else about it is great. So I use rulers, whatever I've got, to keep it flat. So what I've done here, I've put my pattern on here, my template. I've marked the corners of my template, and then I've done exactly what I just explained to you then. I've come in 1 centimetre from both ends, only on the long side and the short side. And now I can get my scissors, keep that flat, and I can cut that out, cutting both my paper and my bond webbing. Now the paper's got to stay on this, don't let the paper come off. Right, so that's ready to go as well. Honestly, if I let that go, it's just going to go quing and roll itself back up. So I've got all my 4 pieces ready to go. Right now, I don't want to lose where my wrong sides to wrong sides are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this piece up here, just like that. And I'm going to leave that wrong side facing up and that wrong side facing up. Then I'm going to get the glue side of this fleece. You'll know the difference because you can see it's really fleecy there, and you'll see all the glue dots on the fusible side. I'm going to put the fusible side right here on the lining and just sit that there. Then I'm going to bring this back over and I'm going to put the web side onto the wrong side of the cover, leaving the paper on. Do not take the paper off. Use your rulers to train this beast because it wants to run away on you. So always have something there to weigh that down. Now I'm just going to change cameras and you can see how I just press this in place. Just lining this up as best we can to be in the center. Now I'm going to just use an extra piece of paper on top just in case my iron gets caught on that web. I'm just going to sit my iron on the corner and hold it still for a little while, just until that glue grabs. 5-7 seconds. Then come to the next section on the edge from the middle coming out and just hold it still. Now I'm down in the bottom corner. I'm pressing reasonably firm. There is no steam in my iron. It is just a dry iron. From the center out again to the edge, pressing still. In the middle, and just keep on going from the middle out. You just want to make sure that all that webbing has melted onto the cover. And don't forget, we're on the wrong side of the cover. While that's cooling, I'm just going to grab the lining with the fusible fleece on it. By the time I start work on this one, this will be cooled down, which it almost is. This one here, I want to really make sure it's a lot more centered than the cover, because this one here is the guide. This fleece here, how it's placed, is how we're going to be actually sewing around beside it. So as close as you can to getting this bit right. I also find that if I put this down here and try to press that, it will take forever if I go on the fleece side. So what I actually do is I put my paper down like that and I turn it over and I press from this side, because that's the side with the glue on it. This is very thin, this fabric, and I hold it down for about 10 seconds per spot. And that way I know that glue's going to stay on there. Because we're going to fold this, I don't want any shift whatsoever from that fleece. The whole reason for doing it like this is so that we get no wrinkles, and we're definitely not going to have wet glue seepage. Just in case you didn't know, I've got a sewing background. I'm a pattern maker. I used to have a offline business. I had a bricks and mortar business, and I used to design leather clothing and fabric clothing, and I used to make custom clothing for ladies and gentlemen. I used to make motorcycle full leathers, full skins, and leather jackets and all of that sort of stuff, custom made to fit particular figure types. So you can see I'm not moving my iron around like I was ironing a shirt, I'm just pressing. So now all that's left to do is peel the paper off this one here, because it's totally cooled. Take your time, sometimes the paper will rip. Which see there, it's ripped, so I'll come in from another angle. And if you don't do it that way, you're going to be forever picking off these tiny pieces. So it's much easier to take your time and do it carefully. So now we can turn these two pieces together. This is the double-sided fusible web. This was the single-sided. So we've put the single-sided fusing on the lining. So now we're going to sandwich the two together. And I'm just going to do it like this. I'm going to line up the cover and I'm going to work from the cover, because the cover is the one with the glue on it now. That one's got no glue on it at all. The cover is the one with the glue on it. If you were working with white or a delicate fabric, you could protect your fabric. Like you saw that white one that I done earlier, I used paper on the top because otherwise I'd have scorched my white fabric. And all that white fabric was this here fabric, the tea towel, not coloured. I'm pressing down again. I'll turn my iron around the other way as well shortly. I've got the heat on about cotton because it is all cotton that I'm using. And when you're holding an iron down and firm in one place like this for a lengthy time, you will scorch your fabric. So that's why I like to use a protective sheet. We'll just have a look and see whether or not we've got good contact, which we have. We've got great contact. Well, that's fused together, and I'm just now going to head over to the sewing machine and just do a zigzag around the edge. Now I'm going to do a zigzag around the edge. I use the 𝙤𝙬𝙣, which is a 100% polyester, and this is from Spotlight. What I'm doing is a top stitch, so I use a heavier thread than normal. I don't use a normal cotton because it's a top stitch, and a top stitch is a decorative feature. So if you want your top stitch to look nice and stand out, it's always good to use a thread that's a little tiny bit heavier than your normal cotton. So once you've selected what color you want to use, you just go ahead and put it on the zigzag. I actually start sewing from what I want to be my back. So I work out which is my front piece and which is my back. So I'm actually going to turn it around and I'm going to start sewing from the back. So that's where my stitches will join at the back, and I don't mind that I've got a little back stitching happening there. I'm also going to have my zigzag just missing that fusible fleece. So we're only going to top stitch beside it. So I'm going to take a couple forward and a couple back, and then I'm just going to sew all the way around. I'm going to have my machine set on when I stop sewing, the needle stays down in the fabric, so that when I get to the bottom here like that, my zigzag is going to stay on the right hand side. Then I'm going to lift my foot, turn my work around, put my foot back down. When I continue sewing, I'll have a nice neat edge on the corner, and just keep going around. It doesn't matter if you just catch the edge a tiny little bit of that fleece. It's so soft, it's not going to hurt your machine. Follow your cover, not your lining. When you get to the corner, slow down on the left, on the right, and stop. Lift your foot up, put it back down after you've turned your work, of course, and continue to sew. Another thing, if your work starts to wrinkle a little bit, just say your fabric starts to wrinkle, you can actually use a pair of tweezers to just get those wrinkles out. So you don't want any major wrinkles happening there. Just tease it out with a tool, whatever you've got. All right, slowing down and stop at the corner on the right hand side. Turn it around and off you go again. Use your tool if you need it, and turn around. Use your fingers if you need to. See if it starts to get some wrinkles in it. The objective is that by the time you get to this piece here, there are no wrinkles in between. So you just need to make sure that it's going to be nice and level there. See what I mean by wrinkles? If something like that happened, you want to try and prevent it by feeding it all in under that as you go, so it spaces it out. If you get a tiny little one there, well, there's not much you can do about it, but the objective is to try and not do that. Then when you've back stitched at the very end again. Lift your needle up and out, pull it out. So I've tried to keep it as neat as I possibly can. I'm going to cut my thread off as close to the zigzag as I can from the top, turn it over and do the same at the bottom. And you can see that I've also avoided getting a wrinkle there because I helped push things back. I didn't let that fabric creep up and push into a little pile here at that last stitch. So be aware of that happening. If it happens, use your tweezers to help, because your feed dog here is pushing your fabric forward. What you're doing with your tweezers is helping it by feeding it back the opposite way and it'll lay flat. Okay, let's have a look at my handiwork. So first off, we're going to make sure that it's square by folding it in half. We're going to bring some pages back and have a little look. The outside looks good. Look at that. I love this eco paper. Thanks so much, Elizabeth. Elizabeth is one of our admins from Junk Journal Ideas. She created this handmade paper by eco dyeing. Isn't it fabulous? I love it. This is going to look much better when I embellish the cover. I love this dusty pink. It was my mum's paint. And I just thought, oh, I'm going to try something a little different than going with the browns. That looks great with the brown though, I must admit. This one here's got a little decorative trim on the edge. If you feel brave, go ahead and put some trim in between the layers. If you're interested in knowing how to do that, we'll do a bit more advanced lesson one day and I'll show you how to do that as well. And that's been coloured with the same paint as the cover. But that's one signature. I've made enough room to fit 2 of these signatures in here. You probably noticed earlier that I've marked the signatures here. There's the centre line, the dashed line, and the line on the right and the line on the left are where I would put my signatures. So I've got one line marked for that side of the signature and one line marked for a second signature there. So this here right now, I've only got the one signature folded up to show you, but if I was to put a second signature in there, it would take up a bit more room and the cover would shorten a little bit and would in turn bring these pages out closer to the edge like I showed you before. They creep out. There we are. Let's trim it up because I think we can. I'm pretty happy with being able to trim that up. I'm not even going to trim back any of the cover. I'm only going to trim that little bit of the lining that's creeped out. Creeped out? That sounds strange, but anyway, I said it. This fabric frays, so eventually this fabric is going to fray a bit. If you choose a fabric that frays and you don't like it, use a fray stopper or something like that around the edge, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to trim it up and let it go for it. Okay, and you can see why I put that at the back. It's not a big deal, but really, if you don't want that to be seen, put it at the back. It just makes the front part of your cover much nicer. That looks fabulous. I love this colour. And I'll show you something. I've got this vintage lace. Did you see my vintage lace haul? This lace is from the 1900s, early 1920s. This colour I made to go with this lace. It's got some beautiful oranges and pinks and everything in it, but how fabulous is that? I know this inside might not be so much you know, what you would put with this type of lace. But when we do junk journaling and make junk journals, we don't really have too many rules. We can do whatever we like. So what I've got here, for instance, I might have eco dyeing with vintage lace, with, this is a folk art colour, with folk art paint on a soft cover fabric. I may not put all this stuff together. What I could do is I've got plenty of this fabric. I could dye another piece of this fabric in this colour and line it with something more suitable. That could be something more along the lines of, you know, something a bit more old-fashioned, an old-fashioned linen that would work in with this. But I think that right there, that is definitely the colour for this lace. So that's what I would be gearing at to use for this. And I love the fact that that is soft, because back in the 1900s, I can't see that this would be used for something hard. So I'm loving that one. The same with this one here. This is going to be a really nice, thicker journal with a lot more in it, with some lovely soft things in it. I may use that throughout the journal somewhere inside, but this one here is more suitable for that one. But isn't that gorgeous? And that is just that white cotton tea towels. I thought it's so different just to make something white. Do something a little bit different. You don't have to be stuck on the same old, same old. Enjoy yourself. Let me know if you need help getting through any of this at all, and you will eliminate the glue problem. Try using the fusible fabrics. I think they work a treat. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video and learn how to make this soft fabric fold over junk journal cover. I'm Donna, and bye for now.